Hi, I'm Dr. Rob Silverman, Amazon best-selling author of Inside Out Health and host of Proven Health Alternatives. Today's guest, exciting guest, Dr. Shawn Dill, author of None of Your Business, international entrepreneur and strategist. I have to tell you that he's going to share some real interesting leading edge techniques how to make yourself more successful both inside and outside the practice. Keep watching. Everybody, Dr. Rob here, Proven Health Alternatives. I've got international speaker, author, entrepreneur, Dr. Shawn Dill here today.
Thanks for having me. Great pleasure to be with you. Super excited to share with you and all of your viewers and listeners at the same time. It's a pleasure to be with you.
You know, Shawn and I, we knew each other, but we actually met out in Edinburgh, Scotland. And everybody knows that I practice the public speaking and I do everything. And I was standing there with another colleague of mine. And we were watching Shawn and we turned around and said, is it a 9-8 talk or is it a 10 talk? And his presentation was just so perfectly spot on with information, motivation, and tone. I know everybody's going to really enjoy what he has to say, but we decided it was about a 10.2 because it was that good. So he was selling his book. Just 20, and it was so funny. It was a good thing that I'm light and I work out because I was able to get on the line, because if he had 200, I think he would have gone through them all. It was just that good, dude.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
You know what? I got the back of your book over here. And let me tell everybody a little bit about who you are. You're a 1995 graduate of Logan College of Chiropractic. You are the CEO of the Specific Chiropractic Centers. You offer a multitude of consulting services to entrepreneurs and healthcare practitioners and professionals through your website, ShawnDill.com. You are the founder, this is exciting, of the Black Diamond Club, a community committed to mentoring, motivation, and business development for service professionals, and is a Book Yourself Solid certified coach. You've trained under many best-selling authors, one of which is Michael Port. And you are without question, because I didn't even know that you had this here, you are without question a highly sought after speaker. You make international appearances every year. You've been featured on radio, TV, and programs throughout the world. Once again, it's really happy to have you. Let me toss it right out to you. Why'd you become a chiropractor, man?
Oh, well, that's a great story. You know, I think like most chiropractors, when we're talking in the field of chiropractic, and it's super unique too, by the way, we can circle back on that chiropractors usually have a chiropractic experience. Lawyers don't. So people don't go into criminal law because they were successfully defended, right, by a lawyer, and then they were like, I want to do that. Medical doctors don't. You don't go into brain surgery because you had a successful brain surgery done on you. Dentists don't. You don't go into dentistry because you love, the last root canal that you had. But chiropractors typically end up in chiropractic because of a chiropractic experience. And so I'm no different. First of all, though, before my chiropractic experience, my cousin, Hernandez, who has since passed away, he was a tremendous influence in my life. And so he practiced in Mequon, Wisconsin, and he practiced during the 80s. And if he were alive today, I would make no bones about it. He was practicing during the Mercedes 80s, and he did incredibly well. So to someone in middle school, in high school during the 80s, I was very influenced by that. I was like, holy cow, my cousin, he's rich and he's a chiropractor. But I wasn't that sold into it until playing soccer. I got punched in the head. I was knocked out. I was unconscious. When I woke up, and this is actually very interesting too, I woke up, of course, I wanted to go in the game. And the next day, I was experiencing excruciating low back pain. Now, I was hit in the head and I had low back pain. My mother called my cousin. He got me connected with someone that went to school with him. I went to a chiropractor. Boom, got well. I was like, this is amazing. I want to be a chiropractor. I want to be like my cousin. And then from there, I was just seriously, when I graduated high school, that was what I was doing. I graduated high school, did my prereqs, went to Logan. A lot of people don't know that I went to Logan Chiropractic College. And then from there, moved to Costa Rica, where I was able to author the law that to this day still regulates chiropractic there. I practice upper cervical as a connection there. It kind of fits back together. Got punched in the head. My low back hurt. The reverse would also be true. If we could correct the upper cervical spine, we would have global impact on the body. And then in 2004, moved back to the United States. I took a teaching job at Life West for a little bit. This is a great story too, because I graduated in 1995. I was 24 years old when I graduated, and then I knew everything, as every 24-year-old does, right? And so I then had to take part 3 and part 4 after I had been out for 8 years before coming back to the States, because when I was in school at 24, I just figured I'm never coming back. I don't need that. And so that was quite an experience as well, to have to take part 3 and part 4 and pass that to be able to practice now in the United States.
That's a great story. And I'm happy you defined upper cervical. It's a popular technique. If you want to go in a little more detail, for a lot of people, we don't always have just doctors here. So if you could, go in a little bit more detail and explain that.
Yeah, in the upper cervical technique in chiropractic, the focus is on the top 2 bones of the neck, the atlas and the axis, and their unique relationship with the nervous system, specifically with centers in the brain stem, and how those 2 bones and alterations in the biomechanics there could have a global impact on the function of the nervous system. And so we use instrumentation to look and see how the nervous system is functioning. We use dynamic x-rays, biomechanical x-rays to analyze the biomechanics in the upper cervical spine. And then I would say it's a pretty traditional type chiropractic adjustment to make the correction there.
Great takeaway. Thanks. So many people have asked about it, and you just defined it really well. Now, you went to Costa Rica. I know a little bit about this. I don't think you spoke Spanish when you got there.
No, and in fact, I recently shared on social media a picture of me in this scenario. As I said, 24-year-old, everything. Like, they speak English in the whole world, right? Like, that's what you think. I moved to Costa Rica. I don't speak Spanish, and I'm trying to start a business in a field that literally does not exist. People don't even understand it. Like, my knee hurts, you're adjusting my neck, and it was an absolute mess. So after my first year in practice, I literally was broke. I had, barely any money to even afford to feed myself after my first year in practice. And thankfully, I had been working hard. In fact, if anybody ever wants to learn a second language later in life, my tip for that is what I did. I didn't have any programs. I didn't take any programs. Berlitz was super famous at that time. But what I did is I read the newspaper, the national newspaper, every day, cover to cover. 2 things. Most newspapers in the world are written at about a 3rd to 5th grade level, a comprehension level, but they also use perfect grammar. And so for me, just reading it every day, I read the newspaper every day. That was one of the fundamental things that taught me Spanish. To this day, still fluent in Spanish. I travel twice a year. We go to El Salvador, Mexico. We do a lot of work in those areas. But back to that story, I was almost about to throw in the towel. And I was invited on a national television show, much like this, a podcast, an interview type. It wasn't a podcast, it was a television show, it was an interview. And what I did was I thought, look, there's several questions that they could possibly ask me, right? Kind of like today, there's a degree of preparation before you come on the show. And so I was like, all right, these are the questions that they could ask me, and these are the answers. And so I had a friend help me to write out the answers in Spanish, and I memorized those answers. And then, lo and behold, I go on the show, and the very first question that they asked me was, hey, Shawn, you look a little bit Asian. What is the difference between chiropractic and acupuncture? And I was in no way prepared to answer that. I couldn't say that in Spanish. So what I did is I just answered my answers. So my answers in Spanish never actually matched the questions. Like, they weren't even close. And so the interviewer was looking at me like, what in the world is going on here? I walked off that stage or off that set knowing that was the end of my career in chiropractic in Costa Rica. And thankfully, they invited me back. And at the end of my time there, I asked her why. I said, why did you invite me back? Eventually I became a monthly guest on the show. And I think this is really important for all of the viewers and the listeners. She said to me, look, when I looked in your eyes, even though I didn't understand a word that you were saying, I knew that you had something very important to share with the world. And so I told the producers when you walked off the set, I told them, get him back. And they looked at me strange, but I told them, get him back and keep having him back until he gets it right. And so I think that, one of the things is, I think a lot of people, and you and I included, we do a lot of preparation on, speaking, tonality, all of these things that we do to try and carry a message to the world, which I think is super important. But I think what's more important than that is that passion. People have to be able to look in your eyes and see that you have something to bring to them that will be meaningful and that potentially will change their world. And if you have that and you can't say it, who cares? They're going to know that you have something important for them.
Amen. Well said. Really well said indeed. So your background's really extensive. It's sort of exciting, and I was 24 years old also, and that's when I knew more than anything else. And each year since then, I've gotten dumber because I've realized how much I don't really know. To speak to that, I think the more you learn to realize, the more you don't know. So interestingly enough, you have a great angle. And so why should service professionals embrace the idea of being an entrepreneur? And if you could answer it in a twofold part, in the office and outside.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that's a big passion of mine. I'm super passionate about this because, what kills me is, on the first side is the clinical side, right? So one of the things that absolutely pains me is to know, and look, let's be frank, I'm sure that probably some of your listeners would fall into this category where they have tremendous clinical skill in whatever it is that they do, but nobody knows it. I honestly feel like probably the best and most skilled healers in the world live in obscurity simply because they don't understand marketing and sales. And that is the saddest thing in the world to me. And frankly, there's the reverse side. And if you fall into that first category, frankly too, look, some of the most popular, some of the most known clinicians in the world, frankly, lack skill. They're just really good at marketing and sales. So my passion here is, let's teach those great clinicians how to understand, how to actually fall in love with the idea of being a business person, with being an entrepreneur. Here's how we do it. Look, the bottom line is, if you have a gift and if you've been blessed with a gift to bring to humanity, it is actually your moral obligation to bring that to as many people as possible. And the only way to truly and effectively do that is to leverage today's modern technology and knowledge relative to marketing and sales. A lot of times clinicians feel like, look, I don't want to be a business person. That's why I went to school to be a doctor or to gain my degree, because I don't want to market. I don't want to sell. And that to me is one of the most selfish positions that you could adopt. Because look, it's ridiculous and it's foolish to think that people should be saying to themselves, bring the mountaintop to me. If you want to go to the mountaintop yourself, you have to go to the mountaintop. And if you're a great clinician and there are people out there who need your service, it's your duty. You got into this business to help people, and part of helping people is creating an awareness of who you are and what you have to offer the world. And so I hope that helps people to understand the importance of falling in love. And that's the other thing. What we want is, we want you to fall in love with the idea of being an entrepreneur, not just have to do it. In the world of entrepreneurship too, part of the thing, and look, even in our profession in chiropractic, we have this thing of like, I'm in the trenches, or, you've got to rise and grind. And I always say, look, I'm not in the trenches. If you wake up and you think that your job feels like you're in a trench, we've done something wrong. I never want to wake up. First of all, trenches is a wartime thing. I'm not going to war. I don't wake up and go to war, and I don't grind. I mean, look, I wake up in the morning, and if I ever feel like my life is a grind, then something is wrong. And so we want you to fall in love with the idea of marketing and selling so that you can attract more people into your office, help more people, and make a bigger impact on the world, ultimately so that you can create the lifestyle that you deserve. Now, the second part of your question, it even goes beyond just in the clinical realm, right? Because the next step of that is, well, how would I make an even bigger impact? And this is actually the evolution that happened with me. I was in Costa Rica. I was seeing, no joke, this is not any sort of exaggeration, I was seeing approximately 225 to 250 patient visits a day. We were working 12 hours, and we had a machine where the people were making all of the effort flow. We had a lot of employees that created that office flow and allowed that to work. But here's what I came to the conclusion of. I realized that, look, even with what I was doing, working 5.5 days a week, seeing that kind of volume, I realized that I still was going to make a relatively small dent in the world relative to my impact. And I realized that if I was going to make a bigger impact, that what I would have to do is that I would have to learn how to scale. I would have to learn to grow my impact, and that impact wouldn't necessarily happen one person at a time over an adjusting table, but that impact could happen at a greater level. And so we see the evolution of having multiple clinics, and now to today where we have our franchise. And I think that for a lot of the people that are watching, you need to understand that you can make a huge impact by impacting others who make a huge impact in their communities. Rob always talks about how lawyers oftentimes get their law degree and then never actually practice law and move direct into leading some sort of a company, or maybe even into political work, all because the degree and what it signifies. And I think that, look, if you have a degree in healthcare, that qualifies you to lead companies that are on the cutting edge of, making lifestyle changes, wellness changes, that are bringing these types of changes to the world. And it's not because you do or do not have the business acumen. It's because you do or do not have the vision inside of the healthcare space to bring a concept to the world. Look, the business parts can be taught or can be surrounded by individuals where they can help you in that area. But individuals that are smart in business, but who do not understand healthcare, will not really be able to champion a cause. And look, we see that a lot. We have the CBD industry now where people are jumping into it just because it's lucrative. But it really would take a mind that has a healthcare mind and a business mind to really be able to capitalize and scale in that space. And I think that we're seeing that if you're paying close attention to what's going on, companies that pop up, and maybe it's led by a clinician with no business acumen, and it goes away. Other companies that pop up that are led by pure business people, but the product is junk because there's no clinical side to it, and that one goes away. When the dust settles, I think you're going to see some very, very skilled clinical entrepreneurs at the head of these types of companies. And so I want to encourage anybody, you have an idea inside of you and you're being held back by a fear or an anxiety. Anxiety, look, is the killer of all dreams, right? And so sometimes anxiety comes up and it kills that dream. I want to encourage you to jump right in. There's no books that teach you how to swim, by the way, right? You know how you learn how to swim? They throw you in the pool. And so the same thing with business. If you have an idea and you want to develop that idea and reach more people, I encourage you to jump right in and start to develop your business skill. That's the only way that you get good at it, is by practice.
Absolutely. Really compelling. When you think about it, you're offering, I lecture, I'm in the education line. So everybody says, who's the smartest guy in a room? And to speak to what you said, I'm not sure, because he's probably, or she's probably not letting me know. And she's not from like New York City wearing not that the docs aren't great there, wearing some slick suit. They are humble to themselves and doing the work of God, if you will. And people do have to understand that, you got to pay, you got to pay your rent, you got to pay your laptop, you got to pay specific things. But I really like the idea when you talked about, the entrepreneur. It's right. If a CEO is someone who's making decisions, that's setting a good decision because he's hiring good people around him, but also setting, a climate and a tenor. And chiropractors know how to deal with patient populations and people, because we put our hands on people, we get permission. You were doing that 225 to 250 times per day. So you clearly know how to talk to somebody and you know how to make contact with somebody. So what you bring to the table is extraordinarily valuable. But with that being said, why do service professionals find it so hard and they always think that they're selling?
Well, I think part of the thing is that they're just not comfortable with themselves. It's a self-esteem thing, first and foremost. And in the second part, and we'll develop that. And the second part is that they don't actually understand that moral obligation. So there's two sides to it. One, and this is what's really interesting, I think, about really successful people. And there's been a lot of studies done, and a lot of people have looked at successful people. In my mind, there's several things that make somebody a superstar or ultra successful. Let's say three things. The first and foremost is that they are decisive. Successful people make decisions quickly and decisively. We live in a super disempowered world where people can't make decisions. And if you want to see that, just ask your friends at lunchtime, where should we go to lunch? And watch the case. Like, nobody can pick a place, but successful people are decisive. Successful people also, though, have strong rejection armor, right? They're not that concerned with what the other people in the world are saying relative to themselves. Like, they're not afraid to propose ideas and get shut down. And the third thing is that successful people are empathetic. That they, even though they have strong rejection armor, they understand what it's like to be in another person's shoes. They're not super egocentric because they can see and they're compassionate to the needs of others. So now, rolling that in, you want to be successful and you are passionate about the service that you're providing the world. Why are we uncomfortable with it? Well, one, we do not have strong rejection armor. We're afraid of what the world might say to us. And we don't understand that when we are marketing or selling, and look, Rob, I have my share of detractors. Plenty of people, I can post something and people will say things about me, and that's okay. I also understand something really, really clear. The people that have negative things to say about me will never, ever, ever, ever give me a dime for anything that I'm selling, promoting, or providing to the world, because they just simply don't like me. So I don't let that bother me. This is what I would call in the world haters. But then on the other side of the fence, you have your raving fans. And look, humbly, I have plenty of those, where I could say we're selling whatever, and I could get a handful of people to buy it because they are just in love with whatever it is that we're doing. They're on the Shawn Dill train. They're like, yes, I love it. That's what I'm doing. But the majority of the world are what I call sideliners. And these people are just kind of watching, observing, and they don't have a position on you one way or another. And your job in marketing and sales is to move the sideliners. Now, a lot of people think that what I'm saying is to move the sideliners to become raving fans. But really what we want to do is just cause people to pick. Because I don't care if you are a hater or a raving fan. What I really don't want you to do is to sit on the sidelines. Nothing happens on the sidelines. If you become a hater, great, I know where you stand. We will no longer market to you. You'll no longer buy from me. If you become a raving fan, great, I know where you stand, and I'll cater in service to you. So I think if people understood that, that builds your rejection armor, because it's not like they're rejecting you. So if I say, hey, would you like to get checked for an upper cervical subluxation? And you said, no, thanks. You're not rejecting me. You're rejecting the idea of getting checked for a subluxation. And that's it. And that really has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with you. And so the next part is then the empathy side. And I think that sometimes too, I watch a lot of clinicians, and this gets thrown around a lot, where people say, well, if you didn't want to get checked, then you don't get it, or they don't get it. No, you see, if you were empathetic, you would understand that, look, at some point in your life, you probably didn't get it either. And it's your job to help to create rapport, to engage your community, and then eventually, and that's the order, by the way, it's not educate first, it's rapport, engagement, enrollment, and then educate them about what it is that they do so that they can make better decisions. And I think that someone who's highly empathetic, they see that, and then, and look, in chiropractic, this is the problem. In chiropractic, we have always attempted to educate first without any degree of rapport, engagement, or enrollment. And then because we're educating them first, it comes off terrible. And then people are like, you guys are nuts, you guys are quacks. And then we immediately default to, well, you don't get it, right? And so I believe that our past and our history is what sets us up to have that resistance to marketing and sales. I also think that done right, you can see that it's fun and it's easy and it's effortless, and that it actually attracts people into your world.
I agree with you, especially with the rejection part. It's really them that, if they're rejecting you, it's them. But it's a great idea. Really speaking to the idea, practicing, the first thing is, well, let me educate them, but you're right. Let me build their trust, essentially. Let them know that I'm on their team, and then I can educate them because their mind will open. I go through that almost every day. They don't get it. They're just not there yet.
Right.
I haven't made the connection. It takes time sometimes. It's not an instantaneous thing. And let's be real. People don't like change. So,
Right.
till they understand the change is really beneficial for them. You have some basic marketing tenets that are really good. They're not expensive and they're pretty easy to implement. Could you go over a few of them for everybody listening?
Yeah, and this is great because you just segued perfectly into that, right? So here's the matrix. Here's what we teach is we want to build community, isolate them, sell into the isolated community, and then provide referral opportunities. That's it. That's what marketing for me in the service world is. Building community. We have to get people right now in 2019 love to be a part of something greater than themselves. There's a great book. It's called The Pendulum by Roy Williams, where it talks about the pendular swing in 20-year intervals between the me society and the we society. Well, 2023 will be the peak of the we society. That means that for the next 24 years still, people are going to be really pulled towards being a part of something greater than themselves. And so even though you're a healthcare provider or you provide a service, that service needs to be wrapped up in creating something bigger. For us, we have the specific chiropractic centers as a community and all of the people that we take care of. And then even on our consulting side, the Black Diamond Club, where people come together to be a part of something big, right? Bigger than what they're doing just all by themselves. In your community, you would do the same thing. Next, you isolate them. And what that means is that we put them into, maybe we're inviting them to groups. Look, one of the things that's super popular right now in 2019 are book clubs. Oprah Winfrey championing, and look, not electric books. People like actually now getting books, like getting an actual book and then getting together and reading it because it creates community. Coffee shops, the popularity of coffee shops. You see Capital One, AT&T, they're opening coffee shops. Why? Because it brings people together and then they become isolated. When you're isolated, because we're going to the Capital One coffee shop, then you sell into the isolated community. And that's what Capital One is doing. You keep coming to the Capital One coffee shop, and then they're making offers for you to buy investments, open bank accounts, et cetera, inside of the isolated community. This, I believe, is the future of marketing, where you no longer are making these mass blanket market promotions like commercials, TV commercials, because it's more effective, even, for example, through social media, to target isolated communities, hopefully a community that you've built yourself. And then lastly, once you've done that, you have to provide them with opportunities to refer. And I think this is something that, especially for our healthcare providers, is super lost. Most of your patients, first of all, almost every healthcare provider that I ever talk to says, I wish I could have a referral-only practice. Great, that's the holy grail. The next thing that I would say is, so how do you teach the people that you take care of how to refer to you? And that is usually met with, what do you mean? And that's the problem, is that you have to give people the tools so that they can appropriately and effectively make referrals to you. That's how you create that referral-based practice. Just asking, so just saying like, hey, Rob, would you send me a referral is not enough, because you don't know, should you have them call my cell phone? Should they email me? Should you direct them to my website? Should you tell them what my fees are in advance? You don't know these things. And so anytime that you feel uncomfortable, what it does is it stymies the possibility for the conversation. And so the last piece is create direct opportunities, direct strategies. My mentor, my coach now, Jay Abraham, talks about this. You need to have multiple referral strategies built into your business in order to grow exponentially. And so that's that last piece. And none of that stuff actually cost money. Building a community, they could just be coming to your office. Like, you don't have to spend money to do that. Making sales offers into the community, once the community is coming together, you're telling it's natural. That was what you were just saying. And then referral opportunities. Maybe you make some referral cards or but again, it's very minimal in what you have to spend in the marketing world. And that's what's great about 2019 is the playing field is level. It is not the people that have the most money that can put the message out there the fastest. And since I said that, I also want to dispel something real quick. Oftentimes people say the loudest voice wins. I vehemently disagree with that. I think the most convicted voice wins, and I can give you tons of examples through history where it was not the loudest voice. My favorite being Rosa Parks, who actually shifted a civil rights movement without uttering a word. So it wasn't the loudest voice that won. It was the most convicted voice.
Yeah, very, very well said. All great stuff. My question is, where can any service provider who's listening, is that in your Black Diamond Club? Where can they get the tools and start to implement in a little coaching?
Yeah, let's give everybody a business hack today. So we're here today promoting the book, None of Your Business, right? So the book you can purchase on Amazon. So you just go to Amazon.com and you get None of Your Business in stereo here. And then if you flip to the very last page, and so I'm gonna have you do this too, Rob, right after we hang up here. When you go to the last page of the text, so not in the acknowledgments, but the last page of the text, there is a section on page 148 that says join our community. So you buy the book, it's $14.95. Then you flip to page 148 and there is a link there where you can join the Black Diamond Club for 90 days on us. That we will comp you 90 days membership. We'll work with you for 90 days inside the Black Diamond Club. Beyond that, it's a mere $75 a month. But look, I think that in 90 days, we are going to create enough revenue for you that you'll say, look, I already made my money for the whole year of Black Diamond Club. And it costs you $14.95 to find out whether or not what we're saying will work for you.
You're selling the book short. It's a great read.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
It's a good read, man. I read it on the way home on that long flight. It was great. I've been implementing some stuff that I read in there with some great success. So I strongly recommend everybody take a read. Nice, easy, clear, cognitive read. Any parting shots before we send off?
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody, and I think one of the things that we didn't cover, I just want to put in every listener and viewer's mind this idea, the mindset around wealth. I've said this several times. If you replay back on what we've talked about, and what we're talking about is wealth or abundance or success attraction rather than wealth creation. And wealth creation, it's work. You're doing something to create something. Wealth attraction is that you're attracting this into your life. And so the last part is to have a mindset that is allowing abundance to be attracted into your life. Here's what I know is that abundance loves high energy. Abundance moves towards high energy. But I also know something else, is that you are a reflection. So if you're not happy where you are in your practice and your business, you are a reflection of what you receive. And so look, sometimes people are like, things aren't going very well. And I would say, like, listen, Rob Silverman's coming to town. I think that you should check him out. And they would say, yeah, but the program, it's expensive. To which I would say, well, that's exactly the problem, right? Because if you're not willing to put money in, if you're not willing to invest into yourself, then of course nobody's going to be willing to invest into you. The farmer that eats his seed when it comes time to plant is going to starve when it comes time to harvest. So many times the people we get our money and we forget to reinvest that back. There's so many resources that are out there. And if you want to be successful, if you want to attract abundance into your life, I invite you to take a look around and see what opportunities exist for you to be able to invest into yourself so that you can grow. And here's one thing, without buying the book, without being in Black Diamond Club, this is one thing I know for sure, that if you shift your mindset around abundance and you begin to think about attracting abundance into your life, that things will change you and your business. So Rob, thanks for having me on. It's been phenomenal as always. It was great meeting you in Edinburgh, you and the team, and you guys are so great. Thank you guys so much for everything that you guys are doing for the world and for humanity.
It's a pleasure having you. And if anybody wants to get in contact with you, you can do Instagram.com/Dr. Shawn Dill and BlackDiamondClub.com and ShawnDill.com. So if they want to get in touch with you via your handles, there you are. Dr. Dill, outstanding. Thanks so much. See you soon. Dr. Rob and Dr. Shawn Dill, always yours in health.